One day they were there, in your life, in your messages, in the background of your photos, in the rhythm of your weekends. And then something shifted, quietly, without a dramatic confrontation or a final conversation, and they were simply gone. No explanation, no goodbye. Just an absence where a person used to be. Maybe you've been on the receiving end of that. Maybe you've spent months trying to understand what you did, replaying every interaction, looking for the moment everything changed, wondering why someone who seemed to care about you could vanish so completely without looking back. Or maybe, and this is the part most people won't say out loud, maybe you're the one who left. Maybe you're the one who has looked at a friendship, a family relationship, an entire social world, and made the quiet, deliberate decision to close the door. Not in anger, not impulsively, but with a bone-deep certainty that staying was costing you something you couldn't afford to keep losing. And maybe you've spent years wondering what that says about you, whether it makes you cold, whether it makes you damaged, whether the ease with which you can walk away from people means something is fundamentally broken in how you love. It doesn't. But the real reason you do it, the psychological truth underneath the silence and the distance, is something most people never get close enough to understanding. This video is about that truth. If either side of this already feels uncomfortably familiar, stay with me for this one. And if this channel is new to you, hit subscribe. We break down the psychology behind the things most people are too afraid to examine honestly. Drop a comment below too. I read every single one. Because what cutting people off actually is, psychologically, neurologically, emotionally, is not what the world tells you it is. It is not cruelty. It is not immaturity. And once you understand what it actually represents, the shame that so many people carry around this behavior quietly dissolves into something that looks a lot more like clarity. Here's what nobody tells you about people who cut others off. It is almost never about the other person. Not really. Not at the deepest level. Psychologists call it self-protective detachment, a psychological response that develops in people whose early experiences taught them a specific and painful lesson about what happens when you stay somewhere that isn't safe. It is not a personality flaw. It is not emotional immaturity dressed up as boundaries. It is a survival strategy that was learned in an environment where leaving, or wishing you could leave, was the only form of control available to you. And here's the crucial part. Survival strategies don't retire when the danger does. They come with you. They follow you into adulthood, into friendships, into relationships that are nothing like the ones that made them necessary in the first place. And they activate the same way they always did, quietly, efficiently, and without asking for your conscious permission, the moment something in your environment starts to feel familiar in the wrong way. That's not coldness. That is a nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. The research on this is more precise than most people expect. Studies on attachment theory, the psychological framework developed by John Bowlby and expanded by decades of subsequent research, consistently show that adults who experienced inconsistent, unavailable, or unsafe early attachment figures develop what researchers call a dismissive-avoidant attachment style. In plain terms, the brain learns that depending on people leads to disappointment or pain, and so it develops a very efficient solution. It stops depending on people. But here is the detail that changes the entire picture. People with this attachment pattern don't cut others off because they don't care. The research shows the opposite. They cut people off because they care too much and have no safe way to manage that vulnerability. The disconnection isn't indifference. It is a defense against the terror of needing someone who might not stay. In one longitudinal study tracking adult attachment patterns, researchers found that dismissive-avoidant individuals showed significantly elevated physiological stress responses during emotional conversations, elevated heart rate, increased cortisol, heightened nervous system activation, even while appearing outwardly calm. They looked detached. Inside, they were anything but. The wall isn't emptiness, it is armor over something very much alive. Here is where it goes even deeper. For many people who cut others off, the pattern started long before they had a word for it. It started in a childhood home where love was unpredictable, where the person who was supposed to be safe was sometimes safe and sometimes not, and you never quite knew which version was going to walk through the door. Where expressing need led to rejection or anger or being made to feel like too much. In that environment, a child learns something that gets written into the nervous system at a level much deeper than thought. It learns that closeness is dangerous, that the closer you let someone get, the more power they have to hurt you, and that the most reliable way to protect yourself is to be the one who leaves first, before they can. Psychologists call this a preemptive withdrawal. You don't wait for the abandonment you have been conditioned to expect. You create the distance yourself, on your own terms, before the pain arrives uninvited. It is not manipulation. It is not a power move. It is a child's solution to an adult problem, still running in the background of a grown person's life, protecting them from wounds that stopped being inevitable a long time ago. And here is the part that most people who cut others off have never been told. The very capacity that makes you able to walk away, that clean, quiet, absolute ability to close a door and not look back, is the same capacity that makes you extraordinarily self-aware. It means you have a finely tuned internal compass that registers misalignment long before most people would notice anything was wrong. It means you have deep respect for your own psychological space, even if you learn that respect through painful necessity rather than healthy modeling. People who cut others off are not unfeeling. They are, in many cases, the most feeling people in the room. They simply learn to protect that sensitivity with a level of decisiveness that the world mistakes for coldness. And there is something else. The people who have done the work, who have looked honestly at this pattern and started to understand where it came from, often become the most intentional relationship builders of anyone, because they know better than most people what it costs to let someone in. And so when they do, it means something real. Your capacity for distance is not your damage. It is your discernment, waiting to be understood rather than condemned. So here is what the psychology of cutting people off is really telling you. It is telling you that somewhere along the way, you learned that your peace was worth protecting, that your energy was finite and valuable, that not every relationship deserves unlimited access to who you are. Those are not the beliefs of a broken person. You are not cold. You are not incapable of love. You are not someone who destroys relationships because you don't value them. You are someone whose nervous system learned to protect a very tender interior with a very firm exterior. Someone who has been practicing self-preservation since long before they had the language for it. Someone who is not cutting people off because they feel nothing, but because they once felt everything, with no one there to help them carry it. The work isn't learning to stop protecting yourself. The work is learning that you are finally safe enough to choose who gets past the door, rather than keeping everyone out just in case. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Tell me, does this resonate with you? Are you the one who cuts people off, or the one who has been cut off? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your experience. If this hit home for you, please subscribe. There's a lot more of this kind of depth coming. And if you want to go further, the next video explores the psychology of people who struggle to trust anyone, and why that struggle is so much more understandable than the world makes it seem.